My name is Mareile. I'm 31 years old, and 5 years ago, at age 26, I very suddenly found myself psychotic, delirious, and then involuntarily hospitalized. And a year later came the diagnosis of bipolar disorder, or more specifically, bipolar 1. I would like to tell you my story, my path over the last 5 years with this disorder, what things it brought onto my path, how it changed my path, and also where I am standing now, 5 years later. Again, my name is Mareile. I am by origin German, and I have lived for the past 7 years in Belgium, in Brussels. So just for orientation, it's the Belgian healthcare system that all of my story around bipolar disorder has happened. I grew up in Germany. I was always a well-behaved, smart kid that had no problems in school. And when I was 16 years old, I decided to go abroad. And I spent a year in the US, which made me grow up, become more resilient, more independent. And I continued on receiving a bachelor's degree. I continued on receiving a master's degree. I studied politics and urban planning. And I then continued on starting my first internship and then my first job at the European Commission, the European Union institutions here in Brussels. And that's how I arrived here. And then at 25 years old, I received the opportunity to start a PhD degree on sustainable mobility. So at that point, I had amassed quite an impressive CV, had never seen a psychologist, and same with my mood. It was always stable as far as I could tell. I tended to be on the upside, have good moods, be really optimistic and motivated. But 1 year into my PhD, things did take quite a turn, with me ending up being brought by the police to a psychiatric hospital. I do want to point out that for quite some people with bipolar disorder, like the first symptoms, the first mood swings can already happen in puberty. For me, it just wasn't the case. It came very sudden. So a year into my PhD, I was struggling. I had a project that I was handling, managing practically on my own around safer streets, which I felt very strongly about. But at the same time, I somehow managed to get into quite a black and white thinking where the project in my eyes was failing, and I also thought I myself was failing. For a work topic, quite some emotional distress, I would still say today, where I was really deeply having trouble detangling myself from work. On top of that, I also was in a flat share where the situation escalated and we had a long period of time where we are not talking to each other anymore in the flat share. All of that, for me, apparently being so stressful and so uncomfortable and so without a place in which, I could regroup, that this was actually what caused my first bipolar episode. And in that moment of distress, the solution I came up with was a bit out of the box. It was me starting a YouTube channel. And it did bring a lot of relief to me. It brought a lot of excitement back into my life. I was able to put my focus more on this YouTube channel where I could control everything, where it was sort of my little project and baby that I could shape as I wanted, and where I also received much quicker positive feedback from the people who were watching my YouTube channel. Back then, the topic I was most excited and found the most important was financial independence and frugalism and investing your money. So that's my other YouTube channel on personal finance, and it's in German. But at the same time, I wasn't able to actually disentangle from the PhD. Quitting a PhD seemed like a really, really big step that I didn't feel capable of doing, which caused me to actually just double my workload and have both the day job and the YouTube channel. And that's also where, in my eyes, my first hypomanic phase started. So a phase over 3-4 months where I don't know where I took that energy from. I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week trying to get everything done, up to a point where I was doing a video a day for my YouTube channel, which is, others would have, run into a burnout. In my case, my body chose the other direction. There was a trigger. It was that my flatmates changed and new people moved into the flat share I was living in, which felt at that moment like a very big relief. I was super happy to be again able to talk, connect with the people I was living with. I was also feeling better at home. And that caused me to shoot in the direction of relief, of now everything is going to be better, now things are going to come together, but then also escalating into more megalomanic thoughts, like I am meant for something bigger, like all these little projects and this PhD is holding me down, I'm meant to do. So for a few days I was feeling incredible, I felt powerful, I stopped sleeping, I stopped going to work because who cares? But that didn't last that long. Quickly also more scary thoughts came in as well. One of being followed, of there being some sort of evil powers who are trying to prevent me from reaching that bigger goal that I somehow had in my mind. And I continued being unable to sleep. I went to visit another friend who then saw me and thought, okay, no, I'm going to bring you to the hospital. At that point, I had not slept properly for 7 days. I was seeing messages in my surroundings. If I would see advertisement or listen to music, I would think it would have special messages for me that I would need to follow. Nothing scary. It was more like, this song means I need to reach out to that person and tell them about blah, blah, blah. I don't think I was a danger to myself directly, but for example, being in a big city on a bike after 7 days without sleeping, that I did, and that was for sure dangerous to myself. That was the beginning of my first hospitalization. I'll make a separate detailed video about that whole first hospitalization in the future. For now, I can just tell you, I was admitted at the ER. They did an interview with me. It was very clear that I was delirious and psychotic. There was only one bed in the whole city available for me being hospitalized. The police brought me to that hospital and I stayed there for 5 weeks, in which I had phases of psychosis, calmer phases, psychosis, and was sort of medicated to a point where after 5 years of staying and sleeping in the hospital, I could go home. I felt highly medicated, fuzzy, a bit neutral. There were a few, like 1 or 2 weeks after the hospital where it was like, I don't have any energy, but I do feel neutral. And then quickly, and that's typical for bipolar 1, my mood went down and I had my first depressive episode that did include some suicidal ideation, meaning I was not specifically planning or intending, but I would feel so lonely and so not like myself and so like, what is my life even going to look like? That I was overwhelmed by that feeling of isolation. In the end, I was just a very, very, very sleepy, depressed person. And it felt like my life was on pause for 5 months. Follow-up for me after the hospitalization was questionable. I found myself a psychiatrist who told me at some point, well, maybe it was just a single psychotic episode and stopping the medication could be an idea. And I agreed and we did stop the medication. But it ended with me at some point leaving the psychiatrist's office because I felt so offended by what that person had said, going out into the world thinking, well, maybe I really did only have one psychotic episode. Maybe this is not bipolar. Maybe this is a one-off thing. But then also going out into the world like this without a psychiatrist that I could call upon if anything got worse. I lasted 3 months. It was one summer of neutral moods, of feeling okay, not being on medication, and then a small thing, me after a long vacation coming back to work, kicked me back into hypomania, me suddenly loving my work, still the research job at the university, and me also realizing, oops, that was a big jump in mood just now, and it's time to look for a new psychiatrist. It's time to go to my GP to see what they can prescribe me. I did that. I was on track. I had an appointment with a new psychiatrist, but I wasn't fast enough. And I had, at that point in time, didn't know how to handle it. So the moment psychotic features, symptoms set in again, I had to go straight to the ER. And in my case, it was very quick. Like within 24 hours, I was again completely out of this world in terms of my thoughts, so that I stayed another 2 weeks in the hospital. This time another hospital that had a better follow-up, that also had a day clinic just for people with bipolar disorder. So after the 2 weeks in bed, like sleeping in the hospital, I was able to go like a job every day to this day clinic and have therapy and activities together with other people with bipolar disorder. In those 4 months, I got to know a lot of other people with bipolar disorder. I got my own diagnosis, which was quite a process, and I filled my toolbox. So there were a lot of sessions which were really about learning about medication, learning about sleep, learning about how to track your moods and be attentive. That was really, really helpful. Yet I also, again, after my high, I did my low. So in that period in the day clinic, I was also depressed and oftentimes the person in the corner sleeping every possible minute on a little yoga mat. I was lacking any orientation and also struggling to imagine what would come after. In the end, I chose to go back to my old job, still at the university as a PhD researcher, because it seemed the only, I didn't have the vision for anything else, let's say it like this. I thought, yeah, great, I'm gonna have, a bit of structure again, I'm gonna be able to be social, I'm gonna start half-time. And my first workday was the 19th of March, which here was the day the Corona lockdown began in 2020. So that did not play out as I was hoping for. Instead, I was at home, feeling very guilty about not managing to work and trying the whole day to somehow get myself to work. And I lasted 3 months, and then I said, okay, no, I don't know what's going to come next, but this is not going to help me in any way get out of this depression. That's now 3 years ago. Since then, I have been actively searching how to live a good and meaningful life with my disorder. First of all, by getting back into the YouTube channel on financial independence, and for the last 3 years, really focusing on, okay, how can I help people? How can I make courses on this topic? How can I make my life and my disorder and my work fit together in a way that I have a good work-life balance and that I am also flexible enough to step back, take it a notch down whenever I wasn't doing so well with my moods. I've been living on a much smaller budget because of that, but I am happy to tell you that for these last 3 years, I have avoided overnight hospitalization. I have consistently taken my medication. I found medication that works for me, and I've learned to be able to react already when a mood is coming up. There was also another brief psychotic moment in these last 3 years, but this time I was ready. I had my medication. I knew what to do. I reacted right away so that it did not escalate. I did not have to stay overnight in hospital, and instead could make a relatively calm decision to be precautious and choose to go back to the day clinic. I'd been already for 6 weeks just to give myself some room to calm down, reorder, and then jump back into work. In these last 5 years, I've met a lot of people with mood disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, and their stories are unique. Your bipolar will not look like my bipolar, but there are a set of common tools that we can all use in order to try and live a meaningful life. And with that, I can tell you I'm going to plan more videos. And if you would like to follow, please subscribe and please do leave me a thumbs up so that we can try to embrace bipolar together. I wish you a good day and thank you for watching.